The massive space station floated in the darkness like a silver city among the stars. Ships from 12 different worlds docked at its ports, their crews walking through halls that had seen 1,000 diplomatic meetings. Today would be different. Today humanity would learn if they belonged among the stars with the other races. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the great circular chamber, her hands steady despite the weight of her species' future on her shoulders. Behind her, 3 other humans waited quietly. They had traveled so far from Earth, carrying with them the hopes of 8 billion people. The chamber was enormous. 12 seats rose in a circle, each one designed for a different alien species. The Zephyrians looked like tall birds with silver feathers and sharp beaks. The Corvani had blue skin and 4 arms. The Velthan were covered in scales that changed color when they moved. Each species was ancient, powerful, and had ruled the galaxy long before humans learned to make fire. At the center of the circle stood a platform where Sarah now waited. Above her, holographic displays showed Earth, blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in peaceful patterns. It looked so small from here, so fragile. Chancellor Vex of the Zephyrians spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber like metal scraping stone. Humans of Earth, you have requested membership in the Galactic Council. You claim your species is ready to join the civilized worlds. Present your case. Sarah stepped forward. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber's speakers. Honored representatives, humanity comes before you not as conquerors, but as builders. We offer medical knowledge that could extend life for all your species. Our doctors have cured diseases that your people thought impossible to defeat. She gestured to the displays, which now showed human hospitals where alien patients recovered from illnesses their own medicine could not cure. We offer terraforming technology that can turn dead worlds into gardens. We have solved resource conflicts on 17 different planets using nothing but negotiation and compromise. The displays changed again, showing barren worlds transformed into places where multiple species could live together in peace, cities where humans worked alongside aliens, building better lives for everyone. We have studied your laws, learned your languages, and respected your customs, Sarah continued. We ask not for special treatment, but for the chance to contribute to the galaxy's future. The chamber fell silent. The alien representatives whispered among themselves in languages that sounded like wind through metal, water over stones, and music played on instruments made of light. Finally, Chancellor Vex stood. His silver feathers rustled as he looked down at the small human woman. We have reviewed your species' history. We have studied your wars, your violence, your inability to live in peace even among your own kind. Sarah felt her heart sink, but she kept her face calm. Every species has had conflicts in their past. We have learned from our mistakes. Have you? The voice came from Counselor Thane of the Velthan. His scales shifted from blue to angry red. Your species fights wars while preaching peace. You destroy your own planet while claiming to care about life. You create weapons that could kill billions while speaking of love and cooperation. We have changed, Sarah said firmly. We have grown. The Earth you see today is united. We have had no wars for 50 years. 50 years, Chancellor Vex repeated, his beak clicking with what might have been laughter. We have had peace for 50,000 years, each of us. Your species is too young, too violent, too unpredictable. The other representatives began to nod. Sarah could see the decision forming before they even voted. Please, she said, give us a chance. Let us prove ourselves. We have made our decision, Chancellor Vex announced. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council. Furthermore, your species is considered too dangerous for free travel among the civilized worlds. You are hereby confined to your solar system until such time as you demonstrate true evolution beyond your violent nature. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. Behind her, she heard one of her team whisper a curse. She had known this was possible, but had never truly believed it would happen. That is not all, Counselor Thane continued. His scales were now deep purple, a color that seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. The Council has voted. Your species has been deemed a permanent threat to galactic peace. The quarantine will be enforced by measures that ensure humanity can never spread beyond your home system. Sarah's training kept her voice steady. What measures? Chancellor Vex's black eyes glittered. Ancient technology from the First Galactic War. A quantum barrier that will slowly compress your solar system over the next 50 years. Your sun will become a black hole. Your worlds will be crushed to nothing. Humanity will end where it began. The chamber spun around Sarah. She gripped the platform's edge to keep from falling. You're talking about genocide, the murder of 8 billion innocent people. We are talking about preventing a galactic war, Chancellor Vex replied coldly. Your species would eventually develop weapons capable of destroying star systems. Better to end the threat now while you are still contained. This is madness, Sarah shouted, her diplomatic training finally breaking. We came here in peace. And, in 50 years you will rest in peace, Counselor Thane said. The decision is final. Return to your ship. Return to your world. Prepare your people. The human delegation walked from the chamber in stunned silence. Their ship waited at the docking port, its human crew unaware of what had just happened. As they boarded, Sarah could see alien security forces already moving into position around them. The journey home took 3 weeks. Sarah spent most of it in her cabin, staring out at the stars and wondering how to tell her species that they had been sentenced to death by the very civilizations they had hoped to join. They were halfway to Earth when the attacks began. The first blast destroyed the escort ship Harmony in a burst of blue fire. Sarah ran to the bridge as alarms screamed throughout their vessel. Captain Rodriguez was already at the controls, his face grim as he watched the tactical display. 12 ships, he reported, all alien designs. They're not responding to communications. Another blast rocked their ship. The lights flickered as the shields absorbed the hit. Through the viewscreen, Sarah could see sleek alien vessels moving like predators around their small diplomatic fleet. They're not taking any chances, Sarah realized. They don't want us to reach Earth with the news. 3 more human ships died before Captain Rodriguez managed to jump to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the alien fleet followed, hunting. The survivors through space like wolves chasing deer. Only 2 ships made it to Earth's orbit. Sarah's vessel and a badly damaged cargo transport that had been carrying gifts from Earth to the Council worlds. As they approached the blue-green world that was home to their entire species, Sarah opened a communication channel to the planet below. Earth Control, this is Ambassador Chen. Prepare for emergency briefing. The Council has rejected our membership. Understood, Ambassador. Was the vote close? Sarah looked out at her homeworld, at the cities whose lights sparkled like stars against the night side of the planet. In 50 years, all of it would be gone. Every person, every building, every memory of humanity crushed into nothingness. No, she said quietly. It wasn't close at all. And that's not the worst part. 47 years had passed since the day humanity learned it was going to die. Earth looked different now. The blue skies were crossed with silver lines, massive orbital elevators that carried people and supplies to the construction sites that filled space around the planet. Every moon, every asteroid, every piece of rock in the solar system had been turned into a factory or a laboratory or a fortress. General Marcus Kane stood in the command center buried 3 miles beneath the Swiss Alps. His hair had gone white, and deep lines marked his face, but his eyes still burned with the same fire that had driven him to fight for humanity's survival. Around him, screens showed the progress of projects that would have seemed impossible just 50 years ago. Status report, he said to the room full of technicians and scientists. The quantum barrier is down to 12 astronomical units and shrinking. Faster, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez. She had been young when the aliens pronounced humanity's death sentence. Now she was old. But she had spent every day of those years working on the most important project in human history. We have maybe 3 years left before the compression reaches critical levels. Kane nodded grimly. He had known this day was coming. Every human alive knew the exact date when their solar system would collapse into a black hole. It was marked on every calendar, taught to every child, remembered in every prayer. What about the Lazarus Protocol? Kane asked. Dr. Vasquez smiled, and for a moment she looked young again. That's the good news, General. We've solved the final problems. We can preserve human consciousness at the quantum level and store it in crystalline matrices. The storage systems can survive the destruction of our solar system. Kane walked to a window that looked out over the main laboratory. Below them, thousands of scientists worked on technologies that the aliens had never dreamed of. Humanity had taken the wreckage of their destroyed diplomatic ships and learned secrets that their enemies had kept hidden for millennia. But more than that, humans had improved on those secrets, made them better, made them deadlier. How many people can we save? Kane asked. All of them, Dr. Vasquez said simply. Every human consciousness can be preserved. We've built storage facilities throughout the galaxy, hidden in pocket dimensions that even the aliens can't detect. When the time is right, we can rebuild bodies and restore minds exactly as they were. Kane felt something he had not experienced in years: hope. And the other projects? Dr. James Park, the head of weapons development, stepped forward. His team had created things that made human nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. The temporal manipulation technology is ready, General. We can slow time around our hidden facilities, making years pass like minutes from our perspective. The quantum weaponry prototypes have exceeded all expectations, and the ship designs— He paused, grinning. The aliens are going to get a very unpleasant surprise. Through the laboratory windows, Kane could see construction robots working on a sleek vessel, unlike anything that had ever flown. It was built with alien metal, but shaped by human engineering. Its weapons were designed by human minds that understood war in ways the peaceful alien species had forgotten. Its computers ran on quantum processors that could think faster than any alien artificial intelligence. The aliens believe they're the only advanced species in the galaxy, Kane said. They've grown soft during their long peace. They never expected us to fight back. Dr. Vasquez nodded. They think death is the end of the story. They've never faced a species that refused to stay dead. Kane moved to another screen that showed the hidden facilities being built throughout the galaxy. Using technology reverse-engineered from alien ships, human construction teams had been secretly establishing bases on dead worlds, inside asteroid fields, and in the empty spaces between stars. Each facility was invisible to alien sensors, protected by quantum shields and powered by miniature stars contained in magnetic bottles. The aliens divided our territory among themselves after they killed our diplomats, Kane said, his voice hard with anger. They're strip mining our former colonies and building monuments to celebrate our extinction. They think they've won. They couldn't be more wrong, Dr. Park replied. Every resource they've stolen from human worlds has been catalogued. Every insult will be repaid with interest. Kane looked at the countdown timer on the main screen. 2 years, 4 months, 16 days until the quantum barrier would crush their solar system. But that wasn't the end of humanity's story. It was just the end of the first chapter. What about the children? Kane asked quietly. Dr. Vasquez understood. There were millions of children on Earth and the human colonies, too young to understand what was happening, too innocent to know that their entire species was about to die. They'll be preserved along with everyone else. When we rebuild, they'll wake up in new bodies on new worlds. They'll never know they died. And they'll grow up in a galaxy where humanity is respected, Kane added firmly, where no alien species will ever again dare to pronounce judgment on the human race. The laboratory hummed with activity as the final preparations continued. Humans worked around the clock, driven by the knowledge that they were racing against time itself. Sleep was rationed, food was secondary. Nothing mattered except the projects that would allow humanity to survive its own extinction. In the weapons lab, scientists tested devices that could tear holes in space-time itself. In the medical bay, doctors perfected the techniques needed to rebuild human bodies from quantum templates. In the computer centers, programmers created artificial intelligences that would guard humanity's sleeping minds for however long it took. Kane visited each section personally, talking to the people who were giving everything to save their species. They all knew they would die when the barrier collapsed, Their bodies would be crushed along with their planet. But their minds, their memories, their essential humanity would survive in the hidden storage facilities scattered throughout the galaxy. "General," Dr. Vasquez called out, "we're receiving the final reports from the deep space teams." Kane hurried back to the main screen. For years, small human ships had been sneaking through alien territory, gathering intelligence and placing monitoring devices near important alien worlds. It was dangerous work. Any ship caught would reveal that humans had technology the aliens didn't know about. But the information was essential for what would come later. "The alien species have grown complacent," reported Captain Lisa Zhang from somewhere near the Zephyrian homeworld. Her ship was invisible to alien sensors, a ghost watching their enemies from the darkness. "Their military technology hasn't advanced in centuries. They rely on the same old weapons, the same old tactics. They're not prepared for war." "Perfect," Kane muttered. The aliens had sentenced humanity to death, believing humans were too primitive to fight back. They had made the classic mistake of underestimating their enemy. Dr. Vasquez brought up another display. "The consciousness transfer process will begin in 6 months. We'll start with volunteers, then move to mandatory transfers as the barrier compression accelerates. By the time our solar system dies, every human mind will be safely stored in the quantum matrices." Kane nodded. "And how long before we can begin the restoration process?" "The AI Guardians will monitor the galaxy continuously," Dr. Park explained. "When conditions are right, when the aliens have forgotten about humanity and grown even more complacent, the restoration will begin. Best estimate is 200 to 300 years. 200 to 300 years of waiting in quantum storage while their enemies celebrated victory. 200 to 300 years for the aliens to forget that humanity had ever existed. 200 to 300 years to let their guard down completely. They think they've seen the last of us," Kane said quietly. "They're going to learn that forsaking humanity to die was the biggest mistake in galactic history." Outside, the quantum barrier continued its slow but inexorable compression. Soon, very soon, the solar system would collapse. The Earth would die. The sun would become a black hole, and the alien species would believe they had finally solved the human problem. They would be wrong. So very, catastrophically wrong. 300 years passed like a whisper in the darkness. The galaxy had changed during humanity's long sleep. The 12 council species had grown fat and lazy on the resources stolen from human worlds. Where Earth's colonies had once stood, alien cities now sprawled across the landscapes. Zephyrian mining operations stripped away mountains that humans had named. Corvani pleasure gardens grew in soil that had once nourished human crops. On the former human world of New Geneva, the Tiu, aliens had built a massive monument. It was made of black stone and reached toward the sky like a spear. Golden letters in 12 different alien languages told the same story. Here ended the human threat. Here began true galactic peace. The aliens had forgotten many things during their 3 centuries of easy living. They had forgotten how to fight real wars. They had forgotten how to be afraid. Most importantly, they had forgotten that humans were very, very good at holding grudges. Deep in the quantum pocket dimensions scattered throughout the galaxy, the Lazarus Protocol finally activated. Ancient guardians, artificial intelligences, more complex than anything the aliens had ever created, began their careful work. They had been watching, waiting, learning about the galaxy that had killed their creators. The first consciousness to wake belonged to Commander Sarah Chen, not the old ambassador who had pleaded before the Galactic Council, but the same mind, preserved at the moment of Earth's destruction. She opened her eyes in a body that was both familiar and strange, human in every way that mattered, but enhanced with technologies the aliens could not even imagine. She stood in a chamber carved from living crystal, deep inside an asteroid that drifted between the stars. Around her, other crystal pods began to glow as more human minds returned to wakefulness. The resurrection had begun. "Status report," Sarah said to the air, her voice automatically picked up by the facility's sensors. "Welcome back, Commander," replied the Guardian AI in a voice that sounded almost human. "Current date, Standard Galactic Year 2387. Location, Lazarus Station Alpha, hidden in the void reach between the Corvani and Velthan territories. Sarah walked to a wall that became transparent at her approach. Outside, space looked empty, but she knew better. Hidden throughout this region were dozens of similar facilities, each one containing thousands of preserved human minds and the technology needed to give them new bodies. "Show me what the aliens have done," she ordered. The crystal walls filled with images that made Sarah's enhanced heart burn with cold anger. Human cities turned into alien resorts. Human monuments replaced with victory statues celebrating humanity's extinction. Alien children played in parks built on human graveyards, never knowing that an entire species had died so they could have their peaceful galaxy. But the images also showed something else. Weakness. The alien species had grown soft during their centuries of easy living. Their military fleets were reduced to ceremonial formations. Their soldiers were parade ground peacekeepers who had never seen real combat. Their weapons were antiques maintained by technicians who barely understood how they worked. "How many of us are awake?" Sarah asked. "Currently, 50,000 humans across 12 facilities," the Guardian replied. "Full resurrection protocols will be complete within 6 months. All 8.3 billion preserved consciousnesses will have new bodies and full access to enhanced capabilities." Sarah nodded. Enhanced capabilities. That was a mild way to describe what humanity had become during their long sleep. The Guardian AIs had not been idle during the 3 centuries. They had continued developing human technology, improving on designs, creating things that would have amazed even the scientists who had built the Lazarus Protocol. "What about our ships?" "Fleet construction is proceeding on schedule. Current inventory includes 50,000 stealth fighters, 10,000 heavy cruisers, 1,000 dreadnoughts, and 12 planet killers." The numbers were staggering, but Sarah felt no satisfaction. This wasn't about conquest. This was about justice. The aliens had sentenced humanity to extinction without trial, without mercy, without even the chance to defend themselves. Now it was time to collect what they owed. Dr. Elena Vasquez was among the next to wake. Her new body was young and strong, but her mind carried the memories of an old woman who had spent her final years preparing for this moment. She found Sarah standing before a holographic display that showed the current state of galactic civilization. "They really did it," Elena said quietly. "They wiped us out and divided our territory among themselves." "Look closer," Sarah replied, pointing to the display. "See how they've organized their new territories? The Zephyrians control the mining worlds. The Corvani run the agricultural systems. The Velthan manage the manufacturing planets. They've created a galactic economy based entirely on resources stolen from humanity." Elena studied the patterns. As a scientist, she could see the elegant efficiency of it. As a human being, it made her furious. "They built their golden age on our graves." General Marcus Kane was the third to wake. His new body was exactly as it had been in his prime, strong, fast, and filled with the kind of cold determination that had driven him to prepare for humanity's resurrection. He looked at the displays showing alien prosperity and smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "They think they won," he said simply. "Time to teach them the difference between winning a battle and winning a war." The awakening process continued. Across all 12 hidden facilities, scientists, soldiers, engineers, doctors, artists, teachers, every type of human expertise was restored and enhanced. They woke up in a galaxy that had forgotten them, which was exactly what they had planned. "The aliens celebrate something called Humanity Day every year," the Guardian AI reported. "It marks the anniversary of Earth's destruction. There are parades, speeches about the triumph of galactic peace, and renewed pledges to never let another species threaten their civilization." Sarah laughed, and the sound echoed through the crystal chamber like breaking glass. "How thoughtful of them. They've even given us a deadline for their education." Kane joined her at the transparent wall. "How long until the next Humanity Day?" 14 months, the Guardian replied. "Perfect," Kane said. "Time enough to prepare, but not so long that we lose momentum. We'll give them a Humanity Day they'll never forget." Elena was studying the technical specifications of humanity's new ships. The vessels were works of art and instruments of war combined into something that transcended both. They could phase in and out of normal space, making them effectively invisible until they chose to attack. Their weapons could shatter planets or surgically remove individual buildings without touching anything nearby. Their hulls were made of materials that could regenerate from quantum blueprints, making them nearly indestructible. These ships, Elena breathed. They're beyond anything the aliens ever built. That was the idea, Kane replied. The aliens sentenced us to death because they thought we were primitive. Time to show them what happens when you give a primitive species 300 years to improve. Sarah called up another display, this one showing the current locations of the alien leadership. The same council that had condemned humanity still existed, though the individual members had changed over the centuries. They lived in luxury on worlds that had once belonged to humans, protected by ceremonial guards who had never faced a real threat. Where do we start? Kane asked. Sarah's smile was as cold as the space between stars. We start by returning their gifts. They gave us death and extinction. It's only polite that we return the favor. Throughout the hidden facilities, more humans continued to wake. Each one experienced the same sequence of emotions, confusion, then recognition, then burning anger as they learned what had happened during their long sleep. The aliens had not just killed humanity. They had erased them, stolen from them, and built monuments celebrating their extinction. But the aliens had made one critical error. They had assumed that death was permanent. They had never encountered a species stubborn enough to refuse to stay dead. They were about to learn that forsaking humanity to die had been the worst mistake in galactic history. The resurrection was almost complete. Soon, 8.3 billion human minds would inhabit enhanced bodies and pilot ships that could tear holes in reality itself. The galaxy had enjoyed 3 centuries of peace built on humanity's grave. That peace was about to end. The attacks began at exactly 12 KOS Galactic Standard Time on Humanity Day. On 12 worlds across the galaxy, the alien species had gathered to celebrate 3 centuries of peace. Children waved flags showing the symbols of unity. Leaders gave speeches about the wisdom of their ancestors who had eliminated the human threat. Monuments to galactic harmony gleamed in the sunlight of alien suns. Then the sky began to burn. On Zephyr Prime, Chancellor Kex was delivering the traditional Humanity Day address when the first human ship materialized above the capital city. It appeared from nowhere, its hull black as the space between stars, its weapons glowing with energies that made the air itself tremble. Citizens of the galaxy, Chancellor Kex was saying, today we remember the difficult decision our ancestors made to preserve galactic peace. The elimination of the human threat was... His words died as the ship's communication system overrode every broadcast on the planet. A human woman appeared on screens throughout the city. She was young-looking, but her eyes held the weight of centuries. My name is Commander Sarah Chen, she said in perfect Zephyrian. 300 years ago, your ancestors sentenced my species to death. You stole our worlds. You erased our history. You built your civilization on our graves. Today, we begin collecting what you owe us. Chancellor Kex stared at the screens, in disbelief. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. The quantum barrier had crushed their solar system into a black hole centuries ago. Impossible, he whispered. On the screens, the human woman smiled. It was not a friendly expression. You aliens have a saying, what is dead cannot return. Allow us to introduce you to a human concept. Resurrection. The ship above the city opened fire, but not on the crowds below. Instead, its weapons lanced out with surgical precision, destroying the military command centers, the government buildings, and the communication arrays. The aliens watched in terror as their defenses vanished in bursts of impossible light. But the humans didn't harm a single civilian. Children cowered in the streets while their parents stared at the sky. But no weapons fell on the residential areas. The human ship was making a statement. We could kill you all, but we choose not to. On 11 other worlds, the same scene played out with deadly precision. Corvani trade stations exploded in blue fire while their passenger ships were left untouched. Felthan battle fleets found themselves outmatched by vessels that phased in and out of reality like ghosts. The proud Therian defense grid collapsed under weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. In the space above each world, more human ships appeared. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands. They hung in perfect formations, their weapons trained. On the alien cities below, their message clear: surrender or die. Admiral Vass of the Corvani Navy tried to mount a defense around his homeworld. His ships were the pride of the fleet, massive vessels armed with weapons that could crack moons. He had 300 ships under his command, more than enough to deal with any threat. All vessels, attack formation Delta, he commanded. Show these ghosts what happens when they threaten the civilized galaxy. The Corvani ships opened fire with everything they had: energy beams that could melt asteroids, missiles that could level continents, shields that had never been breached in 3 centuries of peace. The human ships didn't even bother to dodge. The alien weapons struck their hulls and simply vanished, absorbed by technologies that turned raw energy into fuel for their own systems. Then the human ships fired back. Admiral Vass watched in horror as his flagship's weapons were surgically removed by beams that cut through his shields like they weren't even there. Around him, his fleet was being systematically disarmed. Their guns destroyed, their engines disabled, but their crews left alive. Surrender, came a voice over the communication system. It spoke in perfect Corvani, but with an accent that was unmistakably human. Your weapons are obsolete, your tactics are predictable, your ships are toys compared to ours. Stand down now and live to see tomorrow. Admiral Vass looked at his tactical display. In less than 10 minutes, the human fleet had neutralized 300 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, without destroying a single one. The aliens were completely, utterly outmatched. All ships, ceasefire, he said quietly. Stand down. On Thyra, the homeworld of the species that had cast the deciding vote to execute humanity, General Zorth received reports that made no sense. Human fleets were attacking across the galaxy simultaneously, using weapons and ships that shouldn't exist. Sir, his aide reported, we're receiving surrender requests from Zephyr Prime, Corvani, Velthan, and 7 other systems. Their defense fleets have been neutralized. That's impossible, General Zorth snarled. Humans have been extinct for 3 centuries. As if summoned by his words, a holographic figure appeared in the command center. It was a human man in military uniform, his face scarred, his eyes like chips of ice. General Zorth, the figure said. My name is Marcus Kane. I was the man your ancestors chose to kill when they destroyed my species. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a very long time. General Zorth reached for his sidearm, but his hand froze as he realized he was looking at a projection. The human wasn't even on the planet. He was broadcasting from one of the ships that now filled the sky above Thyra. You're dead, General, Zorth said. Your entire species is dead. That's what your people thought, Kane replied. Turns out you were wrong about a lot of things. Wrong about humans being primitive. Wrong about death being permanent. Wrong about us not being able to fight back. Around the command center, Therian officers stared at the hologram in shock. Some of them were children of the generation that had voted to destroy humanity. They had grown up believing the human threat was ancient history. What do you want? General Zorth asked. Kane's smile was colder than the vacuum of space. Justice. Your species voted to murder 8 billion innocent people. You stole our worlds, erased our history, and built monuments celebrating our extinction. Now you get to learn what it feels like to be helpless. Outside, the sounds of controlled explosions echoed through the city as human weapons systematically destroyed every military installation on Thyra. But still no civilian areas were touched. The message was clear. This was justice, not massacre. We could kill every one of you, Kane continued. We could turn your worlds into radioactive dust. We could make your species extinct the way you tried to make us extinct. But we're not you. We're better than you. General Zorth felt something he had never experienced before, genuine fear, not just of death but of judgment. The humans had returned with power beyond imagination, and they were offering mercy to people who had shown them none. Across the galaxy, The pattern repeated. Human fleets appeared from nowhere, overwhelming alien defenses with impossible ease, then broadcasting messages of controlled vengeance. They destroyed military targets with surgical precision, while leaving civilians untouched. They captured alien leaders and dismantled defense networks, but they didn't commit genocide. It was psychological warfare at its most effective. The aliens realized they were completely at the mercy of a species they had tried to exterminate. Every human ship, every human weapon, every human soldier was proof that the primitive species had returned more advanced than their so-called superiors. On the rebuilt Concordia station, where the original vote to destroy humanity had been taken, the current Galactic Council met in emergency session. Representatives from all 12 species gathered in the same chamber where their ancestors had pronounced humanity's death sentence. They were no longer the proud rulers of the galaxy. They were defeated, outmatched, and completely at the mercy of the species they had forsaken to die. And somewhere in space, growing closer every hour, a human fleet was coming to collect the debt that had been building interest for 300 years. The aliens had celebrated Humanity Day for the last time. From now on, it would be known as the day humanity returned to remind the galaxy that some debts can never be forgotten. The rebuilt Concordia station hung in space like a silver monument to alien arrogance. It was larger than the original station that had condemned humanity, its halls filled with art and treasures stolen from human worlds. The 12 species of the Galactic Council had gathered here many times over the centuries, always to celebrate their wisdom in eliminating the human threat. Today would be different. The human fleet materialized around Concordia without warning. One moment, the station was protected by the most advanced defense network in the galaxy. The next moment, those defenses were scrap metal drifting in space, cut apart by weapons that made alien technology look like stone tools. Inside the Great Council chamber, representatives from all 12 species sat in their ancient seats. But these were not the proud rulers who had condemned humanity 3 centuries ago. These aliens were scared, beaten, and completely out of their depth. Chancellor Vex IX, descendant of the Zephyrian who had pronounced humanity's death sentence, tried to maintain his dignity as he spoke to the empty air. If any humans are listening, we demand to negotiate as equals. The Galactic Council recognizes no authority but its own. His words were met by silence. Then the chamber's lights dimmed, and a holographic figure appeared on the central platform. It was a human woman, young-looking but with eyes that had seen too much. She wore a simple uniform, but every alien in the chamber could feel the power radiating from her presence. "My name is Sarah Chen," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "I was the ambassador you condemned to death 300 years ago. I've come back to discuss the terms of your surrender." Chancellor Vex rose from his seat, his silver feathers bristling with indignation. "Surrender? We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. We made the difficult decision to preserve peace by eliminating a dangerous species." Sarah's laugh was like breaking glass. "Dangerous? You sentenced 8 billion innocent people to death because you were afraid we might someday become a threat. Well, congratulations, your fears have come true." Around the chamber, other alien representatives tried to speak, but Sarah's image raised a hand for silence. The gesture was simple, but somehow it carried the weight of absolute authority. "Let me explain your situation," Sarah continued. "Your defense fleets have been neutralized. Your weapons are obsolete. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Every military installation in your territories has been destroyed or captured. You have no power, no leverage, and no choice but to accept our terms." Councillor Thane of the Velthan, his scales shifting through colors of fear and rage, stood up from his seat. "Even if what you say is true, you cannot rule the galaxy through force. The other species will never accept human dominance." "Rule?" Sarah tilted her head as if the concept confused her. "Who said anything about ruling? We're not here to become galactic emperors. We're here to collect a debt." The chamber fell silent. The aliens had expected conquest, expected the humans to behave like any other species that had gained military superiority. They had not expected this. Sarah gestured, and the chamber's displays lit up with images that made every alien present go cold with recognition. Human cities being destroyed, human colonies being divided among the 12 species, human monuments being torn down and replaced with alien victory statues. "You stole our worlds," Sarah said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of anger. "You erased our history. You built your golden age on the graves of our children. Did you really think there would be no consequences?" General Marcus Kane materialized beside Sarah, his holographic form solid and intimidating. The aliens recognized him from the historical records, the human military leader who had vanished when Earth was destroyed. He looked exactly the same, as he had 3 centuries ago, but his presence filled the chamber with the promise of violence barely held in check. "We spent 300 years preparing for this moment," Kane said. 300 years of anger, 300 years of planning, 300 years of building weapons that make your toys look like museum pieces. We could have come back as conquerors. Instead, we chose to come back as collectors. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared as a third hologram. She had been the chief scientist of the Lazarus Protocol, the woman who had found a way to make humanity immortal. "Your species believe that death is the end of the story. We've proven you wrong. But there's something else you need to understand. We remember everything. Every insult, every theft, every monument you built to celebrate our extinction. We have a very detailed list." Chancellor Vex tried to regain control of the situation. "What exactly do you want from us?" Sarah smiled, and for the first time it looked genuinely pleasant. "I'm so glad you asked. First, every world you stole from humanity will be returned. Not just the planets, but everything on them. Every building you built with stolen resources will be torn down. Every monument to your victory will be destroyed." The aliens looked at each other in shock. The territories they had divided among themselves after humanity's extinction represented a significant portion of galactic civilization. Giving them back would mean economic catastrophe for all 12 species. "Second," Kane continued, "reparations. 300 years of interest on everything you stole from us. We've calculated the exact value of every resource taken from human worlds, every profit made from human technology, every benefit gained from our elimination. The total is substantial." "Impossible," Counselor Thane sputtered. "Those amounts would bankrupt our entire civilization." "Third," Dr. Vasquez said calmly, "acknowledgement. You will publicly admit that the destruction of humanity was an act of genocide committed by cowards who were afraid of competition. You will teach your children the truth about what you did. You will build new monuments to human victims, not alien victory." The chamber erupted in angry voices as the alien representatives protested. Some called the demands unreasonable. Others claimed the humans were being vindictive. A few suggested that fighting back was preferable to accepting such harsh terms. Sarah let them argue for exactly 60 seconds. Then she raised her hand again, and every alien voice fell silent. "You seem to be under the impression that these are negotiations," she said. "They're not. These are the terms of your surrender. You can accept them willingly, or we can enforce them by other means." The display screens changed, showing images of human ships positioned above every major alien world. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, all armed with weapons that had effortlessly swept aside 3 centuries of alien military development. "We're not like you," Sarah continued. "We don't sentence entire species to death because we're afraid of them. But we also don't forgive and forget when someone tries to commit genocide against our people. You made the choice to forsake humanity to die. Now you live with the consequences." Chancellor Vex looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives. He could see the same realization in every alien face. They had no choice. The humans held all the power, and their terms, harsh as they were still more merciful than what the aliens had planned for humanity. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Quietly, Kane's smile was sharper than a blade. "Then we stop being merciful. Your species voted to exterminate us without trial, without mercy, without giving us any chance to defend ourselves. If you force us to, we can return that favor. But we'd prefer not to. As I said, we're better than you." The silence in the chamber stretched for long minutes. Finally, Chancellor Vex spoke for all of them. We accept your terms. Excellent, Sarah said. You have one galactic standard year to begin compliance. Our people will be monitoring your progress very closely. The 3 human holograms began to fade, but Sarah's voice continued to echo through the chamber. Oh, and one more thing. Humanity Day is hereby cancelled. From now on, this date will be known as Justice Day. The day you learned that forsaking humanity to die was the worst mistake in galactic history. The holograms vanished, leaving the alien representatives alone with their defeat. Outside, the human fleet maintained its position, a constant reminder that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. On human ships throughout the galaxy, Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Resurrection and looked out at the stars that had once been forbidden to her species. Beside her, Marcus Kane and Elena Vasquez watched the aliens surrender with satisfaction that had been 3 centuries in the making. Think they'll actually comply with the terms? Kane asked. They don't have a choice, Sarah replied. And if they try to resist, well, she smiled. We've proven that humans are very good at holding grudges. We can be patient for as long as it takes. Elena looked at the readings from their quantum sensors, which showed human ships emerging from hidden facilities throughout the galaxy. After 3 centuries of preparation, humanity was finally free to reclaim their place among the stars. What happens now? She asked. Sarah looked out at the galaxy that had tried to kill them and failed. Now we rebuild. We take back what was stolen from us. We make sure this never happens again to any species anywhere. The human fleet began to disperse, carrying out the first stages of the greatest debt collection in galactic history. The aliens had forsaken humanity to die, and now it was payback time. The galaxy would never forget the lesson. Write off the human race at your own peril.